Revolt of 1857 is an important landmark in the history of India, which occurred during the Governor-Generalship of Lord Canning. The Revolt of 1857 was a combination of political, economic, socio-religious and military causes. Nana Sahib was refused pension as he was the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao II. Awadh was annexed in 1856 on charge of maladministration of Satara, Jhansi, Nagpur and Sambalpur were annexed owing to doctrine of lapse, heavy taxation, forcible evictions, discriminatory tariff policy against the Indian products and destruction of traditional handicrafts that hit peasants and artisans. British social reforms, abolition of sati 1829, legalization of Widow Remarriage Act 1856 hurted the sentiments of orthodox and conservative people. Also, the military causes included discrimination with Indian soldiers. However, the immediate cause was the introduction of Enfield rifles, whose cartridges were said to have a grist cover made of beef and pork, sparked off the revolt. On March 29, 1857, an Indian sepoy of 34 native infantry, Mangal Pandey, killed two British officers, Hugson and Bogg, on parade at Barakpur near Calcutta. The Indian soldiers present refused to obey orders to arrest Mangal Pandey. However, he was later on arrested, put to and hanged. The mutiny really started at Meerut on 10th May 1857. The occasion was the punishment of some sepoys for their refusal to use the grist cartridge. The soldiers, along with other groups of civilians, went on a rampage shouting, "Maro Firangi ko." They broke open jails, murdered Europeans, burnt their houses and marched to Delhi after sunset. The appearance of the marching soldier next morning in Delhi was a signal to the local soldiers, who in turn revolted, seized the city and proclaimed the 82-year-old Bahadur Shah Zafar as Shahnshah-e Hindustan, or the Emperor of India. Within a month of capture of Delhi, the revolt spread to different parts of India, especially all over the North India, Central India, Western India. South remained quiet and Punjab and Bengal were only marginally affected. Bahadur Shah too was deported to Rangoon, where he died in 1862. His sons were dead. Nana Sahib, Begum Hazrat Mahal and Khan Bahadur Khan escaped to Nepal. Tatia Tope was captured and executed. Though the bravest leader, Rani Lakshmi Bai also died in the battlefield. The revolt of 1857 was an unsuccessful but heroic effort to eliminate foreign rule. The main causes were disunity of Indians and poor organization, lack of complete nationalisms, lack of coordination, and other motives. The important element in the revolt lay in Hindu-Muslim unity. People exhibited patriotic sentiment without any touch of communal feelings. It no doubt began as a mutiny of soldiers, but soon turned into a revolt against the British rule in general. There is some state it as a racial struggle or a black-white struggle, but Karl Marx stated it as the first Indian War of Independence in 1859. Also, V.D. Savarkar stated the revolt of 1857 was the first war of independence. After the revolt, the British pursued the policy of divide and rule. Whatever might have been its original character, it soon became a symbol of challenge to the mighty British Empire in India and remained a shining star for the rise and growth of the Indian national movement. The Indian National Union was formed in 1884 by Alan Octavian Hume, an Englishman and a retired civil servant, in association with various national leaders who called for a conference in Pune in December 1885. The conference received the unanimous support of all Indian leaders, but the venue was shifted to Bombay for various reasons. Further, the leaders decided to rename the Indian National Union as Indian National Congress. The first session of the Indian National Congress was held at Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College in Bombay under the presidency of W.C. Banerjee, a veteran lawyer of Calcutta. It was attended by 72 delegates from all over India. From 1885 onwards, the INC met every year and its cause spread rapidly among middle-class Indians. With the foundation of INC in 1885, the struggle for India's independence was launched in a small, hesitant and mild but organized manner. The first 2 decades of INC, as described in history as those of moderate demands and a sense of confidence in British justice and generosity. The aim was not to be aggressive for attaining independence, lest the British should suppress this. This resulted in Indian Council Act in 1892, which allowed some members to be indirectly elected by Indians but keeping the official majority intact. The Partition of Bengal came into effect in October 16, 1905 through a royal proclamation, reducing the old province of Bengal in size by creating a new province of East Bengal, which later on became East Pakistan and present-day Bangladesh. The government explained that it was done to stimulate growth of underdeveloped eastern region of Bengal. But actually, the main objective was to divide and rule the most advanced region of the country at that time. The main reason for partition of Bengal was to destroy the political influence of the educated middle class, among whom the Bengali intelligentsia was the most prominent. It was also set up as a communal gulf between Hindu and Muslims. The INC unanimously condemned the partition of Bengal. The boycott and Swadeshi movement had its genesis in the anti-partition movement, which was started to oppose the British decision to divide Bengal. With the start of the Swadeshi movement at the turn of the country, the Indian national movement took a major leap forward. It took up the Swadeshi call in Benares session 1905, presided over by G.K. Gokhale, and supported the Swadeshi and boycott movement of Bengal. Militant nationalism, spearheaded by trio of Lal Bal Pal and Aurobindo Ghosh, was however in favor of extending the movement to the rest of India and carrying it beyond the program of just Swadeshi and boycott of goods to full-fledged political mass struggle. On August 7, 1905, a resolution to boycott British goods were adopted at a meeting of the INC held in Calcutta. It was started as a purely economic measure for the development of Indian industry. Bonfire of foreign goods was launched on a large scale in all the major cities. Tilak took the movement to different parts of India, especially in Pune and Mumbai. Ajit Singh, Lala Lajpat Rai spread the Swadeshi message in Punjab and other parts of northern India. Syed Haidar Raza set up the agenda in Delhi. Rawalpindi, Kangra, Jammu, Multan and Hardwar witnessed active public participation in Swadeshi movement. Chidambaram Pillai took the movement to Madras Presidency, which was also galvanized by Bipin Chandra Pal's extensive lecture tour. For 1906, All India Muslim League was set up by Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka. The league supported the partition of Bengal, opposed the Swadeshi movement and demanded special safeguards for its community and a separate electorate of Muslims. This led to communal differences between Hindus and Muslims. In December 1906 at Calcutta, the INC under the leadership of Dadabhai Naoroji adopted SWARAJ as the goal of Indian people. He, in his presidential address, declared that the goal of INC was self-government of Swaraj like that of UK. The differences between the moderates and the extremists, especially regarding the pace of the movement and the techniques of the struggle to be adopted, came to head in 1907. The Surat session of the Congress, where the party split with serious consequences for Swadeshi movement. The INC split into two groups, the extremists and the moderates, at the Surat session in 1907, held on the banks of the river Tapi. The extremists were led by Tilak, Lajpat Rai and Bipin Chandra Pal. Moderates were led by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. At the Surat session, the moderate and extremist delegates of Congress met in an atmosphere surcharged with excitement and anger. The suddenness of the Surat fiasco took the extremist leaders by surprise, and they offered their cooperation to the working committee of the Congress by accepting presidentship of Raj Bihari Ghosh. But the moderates would not relent, as they found themselves on firm ground. Observing the opportunity, launched a massive attack on the extremists by suppressing the newspaper and arresting their main leader Tilak and sending him to Mandalay jail for 6 years. The extremists were not able to organize an effective alternative party or to sustain the movement. Aurobindo Ghosh gave up politics and left for Pondicherry. Bipin Chandra Pal also left politics temporarily. Lajpat Rai left for Britain. In 1908, the national movement as a whole declined. Morley-Minto reforms were introduced in 1909 during the period when Lord Minto was the Viceroy of India. The reforms envisaged a separate electorate for Muslims beside other constitutional measures. The government thereby sought to create a rift with the Congress by winning the support of the moderates on the one hand and favor of Muslims against Hindus on the other. To achieve the latter objective, the reforms introduced the system of separate electorates under which Muslims could only vote for Muslim candidate. This was done to encourage the notion that political, economic and cultural interests of Hindus and Muslims were separate and not common. Indian political leaders were however dissatisfied by these reforms. Formed by Lala Hardayal, Taraknath Das and Sohan Singh Bakna, The Ghadar party had its headquarters at San Francisco. The name was taken from a weekly paper Ghadar, which had been started on 1st November 1913 to commemorate the 1857 revolt. Bal Gangadhar Tilak founded Indian Home Rule League at Pune on 28 April 1916. Annie Besant, inspired by the Irish Rebellion, started Home Rule movement in India in September 1916. The movement spread rapidly and branches of the Home Rule League were established all over India. Bal Gangadhar Tilak wholeheartedly supported this movement. He joined forces with Annie Besant and persuaded the Muslim League to support this program. He also raised the slogan, "Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it." An important step forward in achieving Hindu-Muslim unity was the Lucknow Pact of 1916. Anti-British feelings were generated among the Muslims following a war between Britain and Turkey, which opened the way for Congress and Muslim League unity. Both the Congress and the Muslim League held session at Lucknow in 1916 and concluded the famous Lucknow Pact. The Congress accepted the separate electorate and both organizations jointly demanded dominion status for the country. Hindu-Muslim unity alarmed the British and forced the government to renounce its future policy. A British policy was announced whereby association of Indians was in government increased and there was to be a gradual development of local self-governing institutions. No pact. The British policy was announced which aimed at increasing association of Indians in every branch of the administration for progressive realization of responsible government in India as an integral part of the British Empire. This came to be called as the August Declaration. Montague-Chelmsford reforms or the Act of 1919 was based on this declaration. During the Viceroyalty of Lord Chelmsford, a sedition committee was appointed by the government in 1918 with Justice Rollout, which made certain recommendations to curb seditious activities in India. The Rollout Act of 1919 gave unbridled powers to the government to arrest and imprison suspects without trial. The act caused a wave of anger among the people. The act was passed. Popular agitation began against it. Gandhiji decided to fight against this act and gave a call for satyagraha on April 6, 1919. He was arrested on April 8, 1919. This led to further intensification of the agitation in Delhi, Ahmedabad and Punjab. The arrest of Dr. Saifuddin Kichlo and Dr. Satyapal on April 10, 1919 under the Rollout Act in connection with the Satyagraha caused serious unrest in Punjab. A public meeting was held on April 13, 1919 in a park called Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar, where thousands of people, including women and children, assembled. Before the meeting could start, General O'Dwyer ordered indiscriminate heavy firing on the crowd and the people had no way out to escape. As a result, hundreds of men, women, children were killed and more than 1,200 people wounded. The massacre was a turning point in Indo-British relations and inspired the people to provide a more unrelenting fight for freedom. Uttam Singh, an Indian patriot from Punjab, shot down General O'Dwyer in London in 1940. The Caliph of Turkey was looked upon by the Muslim as the religious head. During the First World War, when the safety and welfare of Turkey were threatened by the British, thereby weakening the Caliph's position, Indian Muslims adopted an aggressive anti-British attitude. The Ali brothers, Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali, launched an anti-British movement in 1920, the Khilafat movement for the restoration of Khilafat. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad also led the movement. It was supported by Gandhiji and INC, which paved the way for Hindu-Muslim unity. At the Calcutta session in September 1920, the Congress resolved in favor of non-cooperation movement and defined Swaraj as its ultimate aim. Envisaged surrender of titles and honorary offices and resignation from nominated offices, refusal to attend government darbars and official functions and boycott of British court by the lawyers, refusal of general public to offer themselves for military and other government jobs, and boycott of foreign goods. Gandhiji, along with Ali brothers, undertook a nationwide tour during addressing of meetings. The educational boycott was especially successful in Bengal, with Punjab too responding under the leadership of Lala Lajpat Rai. Apart from educational boycott, there were boycott of law courts, which saw major lawyers like Motilal Nehru, C.R. Das, C. Rajagopalachari, Saifuddin Kichlo, Vallabhbhai Patel, Haruna Asaf Ali giving up their lucrative practices in their fields. The non-cooperation movement also saw picketing of shops, selling foreign clothes and boycott of foreign clothes by the followers of Gandhiji. Another dramatic event during this period was the visit of Prince of Wales. The day he landed in India, in Bombay, on November 17, 1921, he was greeted with empty streets and down shutters wherever he went. Attack on a local police station by angry peasants at Chauri Chaura in Gorakhpur district on UP on February 5, 1922 changed the whole situation. Gandhiji, shocked the Chauri Chaura incident, withdrew the non-cooperation movement on February 12, 1922. Gandhi's decision to call off the agitation caused frustration among masses. His decision came in for severe criticism from his colleagues like Motilal Nehru, C.R. Das, N.C. Kelkar, who organized the Swaraj Party. Foundations of the Swaraj Party were laid on January 1, 1923 as the Congress Khilafat Swaraj Party. It proposed then an alternative program of diverting the movement from widespread civil disobedience program to restrictive one which would encourage its members to enter into legislative councils by contesting elections in order to wreck the legislature from within and to use moral pressure to compel the authority to concede to the popular demand for self-government. In the election held in 1923, the Swaraj Party captured 45 of 145 seats. In provincial elections, they secured few seats, but in the central province, they secured a clear majority. In Bengal, the Swaraj Party was the largest party. They followed the policy of undiluted opposition. The Swarajists demanded the release of all political prisoners, provincial autonomy, repealing of the repressive laws imposed by the government. However, after the death of C.R. Das in 1925, they drifted towards a policy of cooperation with the government. This led to dissension and the party broke up in 1926. Activities of the Swaraj Party had induced the British government to review the working of the diarchy system introduced by Montagu-Chelmsford of 1919, as to report as to what extent a representative government could be introduced in India. The British government appointed the Simon Commission in November 1927 for the task. All the members of this commission were Europeans. Indian political leaders felt insulted and decided to boycott the commission. Wherever the commission went, there were cries of "Simon, go back." It was while leading a demonstration against the Simon Commission in Lahore that a fatal lathi blow was dealt to Lala Lajpat Rai. It was his death Bhagat Singh and his comrades were seeking to avenge when they killed a white police official in December 1928. The Nehru Committee was set up under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru in 1928 to determine the principles of the constitution before actually drafting it. The chief architects of the report were Motilal Nehru and Tej Bahadur Sapro. The recommendation evoked a lively debate concerning the goal of India, dominion status or complete independence. At its annual session held in Lahore in December 1929, under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Indian National Congress passed a resolution declaring Purna Swaraj or complete independence to be the goal of the national movement. On December 31, 1929, the newly adopted tricolour flag was unfurled and January 26 was fixed as the Independence Day, which was to be celebrated every year, pleading to the people not to submit to British rule any longer. To achieve the goal of complete independence, Gandhi launched another civil disobedience movement. Along with 78 followers, Gandhi started his famous march from Sabarmati Ashram on March 12, 1930 for the small village Dandi of Navsari district to break the salt law. He covered a distance of 240 miles in 24 days. On reaching the seashore, he picked up a handful of salt and inaugurated the civil disobedience movement. It was a movement that was to remain unsurpassed in the history of Indian national movement for the countrywide mass participation it unleashed. The movement became so powerful that it sparked off patriotism even among the Indian soldiers in the army. Thereafter followed repressive measures such as mass arrests, lathi charge, police firing, etc. were occurred. About 1 lakh people went in jail. The first roundtable conference was held in London on November 12, 1930 to discuss the Simon Commission, but was totally boycotted by the Indian National Congress. The Commission had proposed self-government in the provinces and Federation of British India and princely states at the centre. However, the representation of the Muslim League, Liberals and other parties had assembled for the discussion on the Commission report. But in absence of the premier political party, the first roundtable conference had to be adjourned. Early in 1931, two moderate statesmen, Sapro and Jayakar, initiated efforts to bring about reapproachment between Gandhi and the government. 6 meetings with Viceroy Lord Irwin finally led to signing of a pact between the two on 5th March 1931, whereby the Congress called off the movement and agreed to join the second roundtable conference. The second roundtable conference was held in London during the Viceroyalty of Lord Wellington. during September to December 1931, and Gandhiji attended it on behalf of INC. Nothing much was expected from the conference, for the imperialist political forces which ultimately controlled the British government in London were opposed to any political or economic concession being given to India which could lead to its independence. The conference, however, failed, as Gandhiji could not agree with the British Prime Minister Ramsay on his policy of communal representation and refusal of the British government on the basic Indian demand for freedom. The conference closed on 1st December 1931 without any concrete result. While Gandhi was arrested on his return from London after the Second Round Table Conference, British Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald announced his award on communal representation in August 16, 1932. Besides containing provisions for representation of Muslims, Sikhs and Europeans, it envisaged communal representation of depressed classes also. Gandhiji was deeply grieved by this and underwent a fast in protest against this award, since it aimed to divide India on a communal basis. While many political Indians saw the fact as a diversion from the ongoing political movement, all were deeply concerned and emotionally shaken. Almost everywhere in India, mass meetings took place. Political leaders of different persuasions like Madan Mohan Malaviya, B.R. Ambedkar and M.C. Raja became active. In the end, they succeeded in hammering out an agreement known as the Pune Pact. According to this pact, the idea of separate electorate for the depressed classes were abandoned, but seats reserved for them in the provincial legislatures were increased from 71 in the award to 147, and in the central legislature to 18% of the total. Ultimately, the first ended with Pune Pact, which annulled the award. Leaders of various groups and parties among Hindus and B.R. Ambedkar on behalf of the Harijans signed the pact. The Third Round Table Conference was held in 1932, but again proved fruitless since the national leaders were in prison. The Simon Commission report, submitted in 1930, formed the basis of the Government of India Act 1935. The new Government of India Act received the royal assent on August 4, 1935. The Act continued and extended all the existing features of earlier constitutional reforms, but in addition there were certain new principles introduced. It provided for a federal type of government. Thus, the Act introduced provincial autonomy, abolished diarchy in provinces, made ministers responsible to the legislative and federation at the centre. The Act of 1935 was condemned by nearly all sections of Indian public opinion and was unanimously rejected by the Congress. The Congress demanded itself the convening of a constituent assembly elected on the basis of adult franchise to frame a constitution for an independent India. Jawaharlal Nehru stated it as a new charter of slavery. Although the Congress opposed to the Act, yet it contested the elections when the constitution was introduced on 1st April 1937 and formed ministries, first in 6 provinces and then in another 2. The Second World War broke out in Europe on September 3, 1939. That brought Britain also within its fold. Without consulting the Indian leaders, the Viceroy declared India also as a belligerent country. This evoked sharp criticism from Indians, and the Congress took the stand that India could not associate herself in a war said to be for democratic freedom, when the very freedom was denied to her. The Congress demanded that India should be declared an independent nation. Then only would the country help Britain in the war. The Viceroy, in his reply, dated October 17, 1939, rejected the Congress demand as impracticable and took the stand that the government could think over the entire constitutional scheme after the war. The Congress condemned the Viceroy's reply, and the Congress ministries everywhere resigned on December 22, 1939. Iqbal suggested that the northwest provinces and Kashmir should be made Muslim states within the federation. Chaudhry Rahmat Ali gave the term Pakistan in 1933. Muslim League first passed the proposal of separate Pakistan in its Lahore session in 1940. It was drafted by Sikandar Hayat Khan, moved by Fazlul Haq. In December 1943, the Karachi session of the Muslim League adopted the slogan, "Divide and Quit." On August 8, 1940, the Viceroy Lithgow came out with certain proposals known as August Offer, declaring that the goal of British government was to establish dominion status in India. It accepted that framing a new constitution would be the responsibility of the Indians. It also laid down that full weight would be given to the view of the minorities in the constitution. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, president of the Congress, rejected the offer, which aimed at bringing the Congress in the ongoing World War. August offer failed in gaining Indians' cooperation for war, and in fact further widened the gulf between the Britishers as well as between the Congress and the Muslim League. The Congress Working Committee decided to start individual civil disobedience on October 17, 1940. Binoba Bhave was the first Satyagrahi who was arrested on October 21, followed soon by many more, including Nehru and Patel. But the movement created little enthusiasm and Gandhi suspended it. In 1942, the British government realized that it could not ignore the Indian problems anymore. As a result of the World War, the situation worsened for the British with Japanese advance towards Indian borders. By March 7, 1942, Rangoon fell and Japan occupied the entire Southeast Asia. The British government, with a view of getting cooperation from Indians, sent Sir Stafford Cripps, a member of the British cabinet, to India to settle terms with Indian leaders who were forthwith released. Cripps proposed Dominion status after the war, but his proposal was rejected by all the political leaders. As no party agreed to accept these proposals, the Cripps mission ended in failure. On 8 August 1942, the Congress in its meeting at Bombay passed a resolution known as Quit India, whereby Gandhiji asked the British to quit India and gave a call for do or die to his countrymen. On 9 August 1942, all the prominent leaders like Gandhi, Nehru, Patel were arrested, but the rest of the most of continued the revolutionary struggle. Violence spread throughout the country. Several government offices were destroyed and damaged. The telegraph wires were cut and a communication paralyzed. Parallel governments were established in some places like UP, Midnapur, Maharashtra, Orissa. The movement was however crushed by the government. Gandhiji undertook a 21-day fast in jail. His condition deteriorated after 13 days and all hopes of his survival were given up. However, as a result of his moral strength and spiritual stamina, he survived and completed the fast. This was his answer to the government, which had been constantly exhorting him to condemn the violence of the people in the Quit India movement. Gandhiji not only refused to condemn people resorting to violence, but unequivocally held the government responsible for it. The war situation in Europe improved in the beginning of the year 1945. India's goodwill was however needed as the war against Japan was expected to last for about 2 years. The situation within the country was worsening day by day as a result of deteriorating economic situation and famines. The British government was compelled to come forward with some sort of plan to satisfy the Indians. After consultation with the British government on the Indian problem, Lord Wavell, the Viceroy of India, issued a statement known as Wavell Plan. The plan, which chiefly concerned Viceroy's Executive Council, proposed certain changes in the structure of the council. One of the main proposals was the Executive Council would be constituted, giving a balanced representation to the main communities in it, including equal representation to Muslim and Hindus. A conference of 22 prominent Indian leaders called at Shimla to consider the Wavell Plan reached no decision. P.K. Sehgal, Sanawaz Khan and Gurubaksh Singh Dhillon were put on trial at Red Fort in November 1945. To elucidate, despite the best efforts of the Congress to win the legal battle, the trial of INA prisoners led to their outright conviction on the charge of waging war against the King Emperor. The pressure of the Indian public opinion against the conviction, however, soon mounted high. This shook the British government, and it was compelled to suspend the sentences imposed on the INA convicts. Further disaffection spread among the soldiers. The chief defense advocate during the INA trial was Bhulabhai Desai. The Japanese, after defeating the British in Southeast Asia, took a number of Indian soldiers as prisoners of war. In March 1942, a conference of Indians was held in Tokyo, and they formed the Indian Independence League. At the Bangkok conference, Rash Bihari Bose was elected president of the league. INA was formed by Mohan Singh. Subhash Chandra Bose had escaped to Berlin in 1941 and set up Indian League there. In July 1942, he joined the INA at Singapore. There, Rash Bihari Bose handed over the leadership to him. Provisional Government of Free India and INA was formed by Subhash Chandra Bose in Singapore on October 21, 1943. INA had 3 fighting brigades, named after Subhas, Gandhi and Nehru. Rani Jhansi Brigade was an exclusive women force, but with the defeat of Japan in 1945, the INA also died out. On February 18, 1946, Bombay ratings of HMS Talwar struck work due to flagrant racial discrimination, unpalatable food, and abuse after the arrest of B.C. Dutt, who had scrawled "Quit India" on the ship. On 19 February, HMS Hindustan in Karachi also mutinied. Vallabhbhai Patel and Jinnah jointly persuaded the ratings to surrender on February 23, 1946. The Britishers for the first time seriously realized that with this awakening among the Indians and revolt in armed forces, it could not perpetuate its hold on India anymore. The British Prime Minister Lord Attlee made a declaration on 15 March 1946 that British Cabinet Mission would visit India to make recommendations regarding constitutional reforms to be introduced in India. The Cabinet Mission, which included of Lord Patrick Lawrence, Stafford Cripps, and A.V. Alexander, visited India and met the representatives of different political parties. But a satisfactory solution to the constitutional difficulties could not be found. The mission envisaged the establishment of a constituent assembly to frame the constitution as well as an interim government. On 2 September 1946, an interim government was formed. Congress members led by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru joined it. The Constituent Assembly met on 9 December 1946 and Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected its president. In March 1947, Lord Mountbatten replaced Lord Wavell. He announced his plan. His earlier plan was abandoned for this June 3 plan. It offered a key to the political and constitutional deadlock created by the refusal of Muslim League to join the Constituent Assembly formed to frame the Constitution of India. Mountbatten's formula was to divide India but retain maximum unity. The country would be partitioned, but so would be Punjab and Bengal, so that the limited Pakistan that emerged would meet both the Congress and the League's position to some extent. The Indian Independence Act of 1947, containing the provisions of Mountbatten Plan of June 3, 1947, was introduced in the British Parliament and passed as the Indian Independence Act of 1947. The Act laid down detailed measures for the partition of India and speedy transfer of political powers to the new government of India and Pakistan. By August 15, 1947, all states except Kashmir, Junagadh and Hyderabad had signed the Instrument of Accession with India. The Maharaja of Kashmir acceded to India in October 1947. The Nawab of Junagadh was a Muslim, whereas most of its people were Hindus. In February 1948, through a referendum, the people of these states decided to join India. The Nizam of Hyderabad was forced to accede to the Indian Union under the pressure of internal anarchy and military action against him in September 1948. Thanks for watching the video. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends.